Hello, journeyers. My name is Tony Carnes, your host for A Journey Through NYC Religions Television. All of New York is filled with fascinating neighborhoods, fascinating people in those neighborhoods. And it's also, every neighborhood has a pomegranate of people on spiritual paths. And we are joined by a man that grew up in Belmont, Bronx, and took a path that took him through acquaintances with 6 popes. Monsignor Hilary Franco. Monsignor, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am a kid from the Bronx. So let's not forget. I'll never forget when I entered a deli in the Bronx not long ago, and the man looked at me and he said, "Father, don't forget, there are only 2 places in the world, the Vatican and the Bronx."
And you have talked about all of that and in between in your new book, The 6 Popes.
Yes.
Which is a fascinating read, both of a spiritual journey and of the people you met along the way, which includes 6 popes.
Yes.
Amazing.
But more than 6 popes, all the people that I have met in between. Yes.
One thing that when you grew up in Belmont, Bronx, before you, in the early teenage years, you were sort of wandering and you thought, well, maybe I'll be an actor.
Well,
what happened there?
Yes, I don't know. For some reason, I felt so attracted to to that kind of quote unquote profession, but I did not know what eventually I would do. But I did concentrate on my studies. I got to have a college degree, and I decided, that was most probably the path that I was going to follow, namely, the acting eventually, but then the good Lord had decided otherwise. He had other plans, and that is the problem that sometimes we should cope with, because we think we have our own agenda, I call it. But that agenda, I have to tell you, Tony, it's not sometimes, coinciding with the agenda that God has for each one.
You felt like that maybe that sort of leaving acting as a possible career and going into a vocation, a spiritual vocation, actually helped you be more genuine to yourself.
Yes.
Share that a little bit with me before. I wonder if you could share a little bit with our audience about that thinking you had.
I see. This is the point. I love. As I said, I did love that profession. But I decided that perhaps I don't know. I said, well, I have to become a different persona every time that I would get into an acting. A different kind of individual. And definitely I would have studied the part, not only the part, but especially go into the person itself, and become one with the person that I'm impersonating.
Did you act in any plays in high school, or?
I did. Yes, I did. And but then I wanted to do something more professional. That's why I had gone, Broadway, and I was trying my best, even though I was rather young, But again, perhaps down deep, I wanted to be myself. I wanted to be my own persona, and that's when perhaps the idea of becoming a priest and being a representative of the good Lord, in a way, and that's what really probably brought me to what I have been for such a long time.
Along your way, you went up to work in a parish in Staten Island, right?
Yes,
and you had Chubby Checker come to your Friday evening
yeah,
dance
that was really an incredible thing. I'll tell you. You know, I was stationed as a young priest, very young priest, only 5 years out, 5 years ordained, and I was sent to the Assumption on Staten Island. Now, I think it does not exist as a parish because it was kind of combined with other parishes. But at that time, that we had a 95% like Italian American population, so to speak. And so I was sent to this relatively small parish, but we had a brand new school. So, in a beautiful auditorium. So much so, even though I never liked it, you know, I was put in charge by the pastor. I was being the youngest of the three, you know, they put me in charge of like the bingo, and I always hated bingo, you know, but I had to be there in order to kind of, how can I say, almost smile to the people, welcoming the people coming in, you know, but I never cared for bingo.
You didn't want to be the glad hander.
But among other things, I had all the youth activities, and it just came to me. I said, why don't we have every Friday, why don't we have at least once a month, why don't we have dances? So I guess the idea, you know, became rather popular in the parish and elsewhere, because I almost used to have over 350 young people come into the dances in the beautiful auditorium that we had. And that was a tremendous experience, coming from all over the island and not from the parish. And so I had my own group, you know, like in order to organize this, you know, and among, naturally, there were young people.
Your posse.
I'll never forget, you know, I said, you know, I would like to, at that time, that the stars was just come out with a twist, you know, and the Chubby Checker. And I said, well, why don't we invite Chubby? I don't know how I did it. You know, I do not recall, but I succeeded. Chubby Checker came to Staten Island, you know, and
what was he like? Did you go to that dance, or did you hear him? Or
I mean, I knew that he was a star, so I figured let me attract the young people, you know, with a star, and it really was such a tremendous success, you know. But my surprise was when we had a meeting the following month, and I had my so-called committee.
Right.
And I spoke to the guys. They said, listen, since we have we were such a great success, why don't we invite Chubby Checker again? And I'll never forget the little, you know, one of the kids, you know, and he said to me, Father, well, he's already gone, you know. I said, what do you mean? He's a star, you know, but you know, John Kinsella was the young man that told me that he was gone, you know, but we did not.
The youth culture changes so much. You know, all of this is in your new book that's come out, and we want to tell the audience. Can you tell us the title of the book and where can they get it?
The title of the book is Six Popes. That's easy. And it's easy to read, by the way. And these are some of the episodes in my life with the six popes that I served, I worked with. And also I can say that I was so surprised when it came out, you know, just a couple of months ago, 2-3 months ago. It was number one on the Amazon list of new releases. I did not expect that, you know, but
it's got so many fascinating byways, and I'm taking you through some of the one that's probably not the biggest headlines, but they tell a little bit about yourself and why you're such a cool guy in the Catholic Church, you know. And I also know that when you got to Rome, to Vatican, you were doing some graduate work and seminary work. You also you also sang at Christmas, on the Christmas Mass or at Christmas, they would sing. And so you mentioned about your singing at that time.
Yes, I belonged to the choir, you know, of the seminary. So I had the beautiful, I guess at that time, but even now, you know, I could, you know, sing a little bit, you know, and I love to sing. And I was part of the choir, and I guess I was a baritone, you know, at that time. So I don't know what I am now because I never.
But you said you did some Gregorian chants
yes,
at the Mass.
That was really one of the most beautiful things that I remember, because we had, I would say, about an hour before liturgy, we would really practice the Gregorian chant. And most of the liturgical hymns that I remember, they're all in Gregoriano, you know, that's all it was, the Gregorian chant. And they are so beautiful. They are so meaningful.
And you remember some of this?
Certainly I do.
Could you share a little bit with us right here? Because I love them.
Ave Regina Celorum, Ave Domina Angelorum, Salve Radix, Salve Porta, ex qua mundo lux extorta, Gaude Virgo gloriosa, super omnes speciosa, vale o valde decora, et pro nobis Christum exora. You can tell that I was a baritone, you know.
But the flow and the tone and the oval sounds are there.
Yes,
it's wonderful.
It's so
Thank you.
Really beautiful.
You know, that's part of the great thing about your career and your faith is that you recognize a stage, that the play in the world is like a spiritual drama.
That is correct. It is.
The appearing before the host is like a spiritual drama.
Exactly.
Now, it's dramatic, but it's not acting. It's real.
It's real.
And you notice all through your book, you pick up on things like that about the people that in the Catholic Church, the superstars and the little people, how they brought a certain rhythm and style in their life. And you mentioned you worked a long time with Bishop Fulton Sheen.
Yes. I actually, Tony, I have to tell you that I actually lived with the man, and I living at 109 East 38th Street.
38th or 39th?
No, 38. Right now I'm on 39th. That's interesting. This is the 39th Street is the office of the permanent representative of the Holy See to the United Nations, 39th Street. But I remember when I was named here, you know, the Archbishop that was here said, Monsignor, I have to take you to the residence. And I said, well, it's called the John Paul II House, and it's on 38th Street. So we cross Park Avenue, we go into 38th. I said, wait a minute, I know the street. And he looked at me and he said, Monsignor, you're from New York, you know all the streets. I said, no, I know this street. You see over there, it says 109. That is where I lived with Fulton J. Sheen. You see, Tony, we had only three people actually in the building. By the way, that had been donated, you know, by one of the Rockefellers to the Bishop Sheen while he was national director of the propagation of the faith. But it's interesting how we had our chef, so to speak, our cook, the one who would cook for us, and that was Frederick. Now, Frederick was a Norwegian Lutheran who had left the service of Billy Rose, the famous entrepreneur of Broadway, to come and serve the bishop. Think about it, you know, and he was a Lutheran. I'll never forget Frederick staying in the back, sometimes, you know, in the chapel during the Mass by himself, you know. And so Frederick, the bishop, and naturally, and myself. You know, these are the three people that actually lived there. And living with him in almost like, I would say, physically seeing and transpiring that kind of aura of sanctity, that was really something that for a young priest like myself, one of the things that really, one of the many things, you know, I had read everything about, you know, Fulton J. Sheen. I had read all his books, you know, at that time. And you can imagine, you know, when I was officially named assistant to Bishop Fulton J. Sheen, and I went up at the end of the day, about 10 o'clock at night, we went up to my apartment, was on the second floor, the top floor, and his apartment was on the first floor. So as I am behind him, the bishop going into his apartments, relatively a simple apartment. Just think, you know, for 1 minute that he had not even a headboard and the bed, you know, just to give you a glimpse of the great Fulton J. Sheen. So he turns to me and he says, Father, thank you. I was taken by surprise. I said to myself, if there is someone who can have to say thank you, is I to this great man. At that time, he was at the peak of his popularity.
Well, he was now, tell our audience a little bit about, you and I know who he is, and many people do. Tell us about his Bishop Sheen's impact, his fame. What did he play at that time?
Well, you know, this is really an incredible, he was, let me put it this way. This man actually put back Catholicism on the map of the United States of America. Very few people realize how important it was, his presence on television. We had a small audience of almost 40 million people. Prime time we were talking about. We had 61 secretaries to respond. Our offices were on 366 Fifth Avenue, which is on 34th Street. And we had the 11th and the 12th floor because the bishop wanted each one of those letters to be responded to. You know, it was incredible. Most of them would say, well, we liked your show of yesterday, last night. There was really very few people realized that we were on an ABC and there was someone, let's see, a great singer at the time, you know, Tony, sometimes I have to remember. Yeah, it started with, his first name was Frank.
Yes, his last name, something.
Whatever.
Sinatra, maybe.
He was on CBS. Guess what? He had to change his time because we were on prime time. And that was an incredible audience that we had. Just to give you a glimpse of Fulton J. Sheen, 72 bestsellers that he wrote. It was really an incredible star in the true sense of the word, you know, and you still can see some of his videos, you know, still going strong. I have to tell you something. In preparation to the year 2000, we had the Holy Father at the time wanted to have like 1 year every year for the 5 years to have a preparation for all the priests and bishops of the world in each continent. For Africa, we were 2,500 priests and bishops were in Yamoussoukro, the Ivory Coast, in preparation to the year. And it was really beautiful, almost 10 days we were there. And it's interesting how most of the African priests, they had found out, I don't know how, that I was there and I was assistant to Fulton Sheen. You have no idea, they were so thrilled, not only to see me, but they wanted, books and videos of Fulton Sheen. This was the man that really, as I was saying before, put back Catholicism on the map of the United States. Let's not forget, in 1928, I'm sure that you remember this history. Tony, you are so well versed. In 1928, we were not there, naturally, but there was one Catholic that was running for the presidency of the United States.
Al
He was
Smith.
the most popular man. On the other side, you had someone who was not so popular. Yet, Alfred Smith, who was the governor of New York, he had one problem at that time, a big problem. He was Catholic. Guess what? The horrible publicity against him with telling the world, oh, the Pope from Rome is coming through the Holland Tunnel to come and take hold of New York if Al Smith will win. And Al Smith lost because of that. So in preparation to perhaps the other Catholic that ran and won, later on, there was the presence of this tremendous influence that Fulton Sheen had.
You mentioned
with that audience. But don't forget, this is very important to say, that our audience was 40% Catholic, 30% Jewish, and 30% Protestant.
That's remarkable.
Yes.
That is really remarkable. And you also, because you were close and are present with a lot of with Bishop Sheen and others, notable Catholics, yes, you got to see what was their essential character. When you're in the presence of Sheen, what did you notice most that just sort of shown out?
That I think I will give you one episode that will really tell you everything. Actually, again, the first morning, that I was living at 109 in 38th Street, I figured, let me get up early and come down and see that everything is ready in the chapel. So I come down, and as I arrive near the door, I said to myself, look, this is my first boo-boo. Last night I should have checked because the light is still on in the chapel. So I opened the door, and here he was, kneeling down on that kneeler that is still in the down in the place where his body was in St. Patrick's Cathedral. And I was so impressed by the fact that he was kneeling down in front of his Lord. Mm-hmm. And he would stay there until 7:30, where he would serve my Mass. In those days, there was no consalibration. And then at 8 o'clock, I would serve his Mass. And that would be the beginning. Not only that, but also in this beautiful chapel that we had, the doors of the chapel would open into his study, the big study where he would actually write most of his books. And so from the place
right at the doorways of the chapel
to write, he could see the tabernacle. Yeah. And almost he got everything from the good Lord. Definitely whatever you see in his books and whatever aura of sanctity you can grab from reading those books, from listening to him. It was simply because he was so close to the Blessed Sacrament.
Now, you also, let me mention some other people you knew along the way. Some you knew from brief encounters, some you knew from because you worked with them and you were friends. Yes. Early on, Padre Pio, who, as you know, is very popular here in New York.
Yes.
What did you think when you saw Padre Pio do his mass? And
again, is something that I shall never forget. You know, the experience of looking at all these people in front of the small church at that time. There is a big shrine, you know, but at that time, Santa Maria delle Grazie was a small church. And to see the line.
Not far from Bari, Italy, right?
Right, in San Giovanni Rotondo, you know, San Giovanni Rotondo.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's incredible, you know, how these people would be waiting 2 o'clock in the morning because the door of the church would open at 6:30 for the Mass of Padre Pio. So I guess because I was 20 years old and I was coming from, you know, the pontifical or whatever seminary.
Okay, you know,
whatever.
Father, I'm going to have to stop it here because we want them to read your book, Six Popes.
Yes.
You've just got to go get a copy of this by Monsignor Hilary Franco.
Yes.
And we've run out of time. Well, how much more we could do. Thank you so much for being with us. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. God bless you. And I hope, and we will pray together. You will pray for me, and I'll pray for you.
That's a great deal. This is Tony Carnes, your host for A Journey Through NYC Religions. Thank you.